Hello and welcome back to the Deep Dive. It's good to have you here. I want to start today by checking in on your battery level. And I don't mean the one on your phone or your laptop. I mean
Okay.
you.
We're starting personal today. I like it.
We are, because there is a specific feeling that really, permeates the source material we are covering today. And I bet you know it.
Right.
It's a very specific texture of exhaustion. It isn't the tiredness you feel after, say, running a 5K. It's not the soreness you feel after helping a friend move a couch up 3 flights of stairs.
No, that's a good kind of tired. A satisfying tiredness. Your body aches, but your mind is usually clear. You sleep like a baby after that kind of work.
Exactly. This is different. This is the tiredness where you wake up after 8 hours of sleep, you drink the coffee, you sit down at your desk, and you still feel, well, heavy. It's a density.
Yeah.
Like you're wading through molasses just to answer an email. It sits right behind your eyes.
I know well. In the clinical literature, this often overlaps with things like decision fatigue, but it's more specific to the context of leadership, isn't it? It's the weight of responsibility. It's the constant low-level hum of, if I screw this up, it affects other people's lives, their livelihoods.
The weight of responsibility. That sounds so noble, but in practice, it just feels like brain fog. And usually when we feel this, what is our instinct? We say, oh, I need a vacation, or I just need to catch up on sleep this weekend.
We treat it as a biological deficit. We view ourselves as machines with a fuel tank, If the tank is empty, we think the solution is just to put more fuel, more sleep, more rest in. Input equals output. Simple.
But the material we are diving into today suggests that for leaders, for managers, for really anyone responsible for a team, that diagnosis might be fundamentally wrong, or at least incomplete. The source suggests, and I love this line, that the source of your tiredness may require some more work to uncover.
It's a really provocative idea that the exhaustion isn't just physical or biological, it's structural. It comes from carrying something heavy all by yourself that, frankly, wasn't designed to be carried by just one person.
And that leads us to the core mission of today's deep dive. We are tackling the isolation of leadership. We are going to look at that panic, that 3 a.m. stare at the ceiling where you think, I have absolutely no idea what I am doing, and we are going to fix it.
We are. And we're going to do it by dismantling this myth of the perfect manager, because that myth, that pressure, is what is making you so tired.
To do that, we are looking at a fascinating piece of writing. It comes from a conclusion chapter on something called resilient management. And what I appreciate about this source is that it doesn't start with a big abstract theory. It starts with a crisis. It centers on a specific narrative, the author's experience of having to fire someone for the very first time.
Which is, universally one of the most stressful experiences a human being can go through in a professional setting. It really is a trauma point for a lot of people.
Truly. But out of that crisis, the author introduces this quirky, memorable, and frankly, awesome framework called the Manager Voltron.
I love the reference. It brings me right back to Saturday morning cartoons. It's so good.
It's so good. So stick around. By the end of this, we're going to hand you a blueprint. You aren't just going to learn how to manage, you're going to learn how to build a giant super robot of support to handle your absolute toughest days.
I am ready to form Voltron. Let's do this.
Okay, let's get into it. Segment 1, the crisis and the den. So let's set the scene. The source material drops us right into the deep end. The author is in a leadership role. Things seem fine, and then the inevitable happens. They have to terminate an employee.
And not just any termination, the first termination. That first time is always the hardest.
Right. And the author admits it so candidly. I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
I appreciate that honesty so much. I feel like most business books, they pretend that you put on a blazer and suddenly you possess the wisdom of Solomon.
It's the great lie of promotion, isn't it? We assume that the title bestows the skill. We assume that because someone is a director or a VP, they have magically downloaded the software for how to handle crisis.
Yeah.
But the reality is the higher you go, the more firsts you encounter. First firing, first layoff, first lawsuit, first big PR crisis.
And let's just pause on the psychology of that first. Why is it so paralyzing? It's not just an experience, is it?
I don't think so. It triggers a really primal fear. We are social animals. We are wired for connection, for belonging. Firing someone is the ultimate act of social severing. It goes against our biological imperative to maintain the tribe, to keep the group cohesive. So when a new manager has to do this, their body is literally screaming, "Don't do it. This is wrong." It creates this massive cognitive dissonance.
So the I don't know what I'm doing feeling isn't just a lack of knowledge. It's an actual physiological rejection of the task.
Exactly. And the source validates that feeling so well. It's not that you're bad at your job, it's that you are navigating uncharted territory without a map, and your brain is just flooding with cortisol.
And usually, you are doing this completely alone. You can't tell your team because it's confidential. You can't tell the person you're firing, obviously. You can't really even tell your peers sometimes.
That isolation is the killer. That's where that tiredness comes from. Holding that secret, carrying that weight by yourself.
But in this case, the author wasn't alone. And this is where the story gets really interesting. They were part of a support system called dens. Now, tell us about these dens. This wasn't just a happy hour crew, right?
No, this was structured. The source notes that these dens were a group coaching program developed and facilitated by Paloma Medina. Now, if that name sounds familiar to anyone listening who follows management theory, she's the author of the BICEPS Core Needs Framework.
Oh yeah, BICEPS is great. Belonging, improvement, choice, equality, predictability, significance. We should definitely do a deep dive on that another time.
We absolutely should. But the pedigree matters here. This wasn't just, let's hang out and complain about our jobs. It was designed for resilience. The structure was 6 to 8 managers. But here is the detail that I think is the secret sauce, and I want you to really pay attention to this. They were of varying levels and came from across the company.
Okay, let's unpack that. Why is that specific, detail varying levels and across the company so crucial? Why not just get 6 managers from the engineering department together? Wouldn't they understand the specific problems better?
That is the intuitive thought, right? I'm an engineer, I need engineering advice. But that creates an echo chamber. If you just get 6 engineering managers together, you're all going to have the same blind spots. You're all going to complain about the same stakeholders. Oh, marketing is so annoying, You're going to reinforce each other's biases.
So it becomes a gripe session rather than a growth session.
Exactly. But there is a really important safety aspect, too. Think about it. If I am a junior engineering manager and I have to confess that I am terrified of firing someone, do I really want to say that to the senior engineering manager who sits 3 desks away from me?
Absolutely not. No way.
Why not? What's the fear there?
Well, that person might be my boss next year. Or they might be deciding my bonus. Or, they might be competing with me for a promotion. I don't want to show weakness to the people who control my career path.
Precisely. It's what you call high-stakes vulnerability. But when you cross-pollinate, when you have someone from sales, someone from product, someone from HR in your group, you create insulation. The sales manager doesn't control your promotion. They don't know your direct reports. They're not in your chain of command.
So you can be the idiot in the den, so to speak, because it doesn't impact your day job.
Yes. It allows for low-stakes vulnerability. You can say, I am panicking, and the sales manager can say, hey, I've been there, it's brutal, without making a mental note to dock your next performance review.
That makes total sense. It's like having a confidant who lives in a different city. You can tell them the messy stuff because they aren't part of the daily drama.
Precisely. And that safe harbor, that psychological safety, is what allowed the author to bring this massive, scary problem, the firing, to the group. They didn't have to posture. They didn't have to pretend to be the perfect manager. They could just say, help.
And they did say help. And the response they got is really the meat of this deep dive. Because the den didn't just say, you got this, champ, or just trust your gut.
Which is the worst advice, by the way. Trust your gut when you're terrified just means act on your fear. It's terrible advice.
It is. It's awful. So no, the den offered specific, tactical, differentiated help. The author breaks this down into 3 distinct types of support they received from 3 different managers. Let's call these the 3 pillars of the manager of Ultron.
I like that. Let's deconstruct them. Because each one solves a different part of the panic, a different part of the problem.
Okay. Support type 1. We're calling this person the role player. The source says one manager recommended role-playing the difficult conversation. And they didn't just suggest it. They actually played the part of the teammate through a variety of conversations. Now, I have to be honest. When I read role-playing, I physically recoiled a little bit.
You and everyone else. It's a common reaction.
It brings back memories of, terrible corporate training seminars. Okay, you be the angry customer, I'll be the cashier. It feels fake. It feels theatrical. Why do we hate it so much?
We hate it because it's awkward. We feel silly. We're acting, but we aren't actors. It feels like we're back in middle school drama class and we're afraid of being judged. But here's the thing. Professional athletes visualize and practice every single movement before the game. Musicians rehearse the difficult passages until their fingers bleed. Why do managers think they can walk into the most high-stakes conversation of their career and just wing it?
That's a stinging indictment. But you're right. We think, I know how to talk, so I'll just talk. We don't see it as a performance that needs rehearsal.
But here's the science behind why that's a bad idea. Under stress, your brain changes. When your cortisol spikes, which it absolutely will during a firing your amygdala, the threat detection center, hijacks your brain, it literally inhibits your prefrontal cortex.
And the prefrontal cortex is the part responsible for logic, complex language, emotional regulation, basically all the things you need in that meeting.
Correct. So in the exact moment you need to be articulate, fair, and legally precise, your brain is actively shutting down your language centers to prepare you to fight a tiger. You literally lose access to your best vocabulary. You revert to fight or flight.
So the role play isn't just about learning lines. It's about, what? Inoculation, building muscle memory.
Precisely. It's about cognitive load management. The source says this manager helped the author find the right words and get comfortable saying them, so they felt less out of their depth. Think about what that means. If I have already said the sentence, "Today's your last day," 10 times in a safe room, my brain doesn't have to scramble to construct that sentence in the real room when my heart is pounding.
You've built the neural pathway. The words are just there.
Yes. And because you aren't spending 100% of your brain power figuring out what to say, you free up bandwidth to focus on how to be. You can focus on your emotional regulation. You can focus on observing the other person. You can actually be present instead of being trapped in your own head rewriting the script on the fly.
That is such a crucial distinction. It turns a scary, abstract event into a practiced script. It makes the unknown known, or at least knowable.
And notice the source says they went through a variety of conversations. This is really important. It wasn't just reading a monologue. The role player probably threw curveballs.
Like what? What kind of curveballs?
Well, things like, what if I start crying? What if I get angry and yell at you? What if I refuse to leave? What if I ask why specifically me? What did I do wrong? If you haven't faced those questions in the simulation, they will completely flatten you in reality.
So the role player is the sparring partner. They hit you so you know how to take a hit, how to block, how to respond without panicking.
Exactly. By the time the real meeting happens, the author had probably already lived the firing 3 or 4 different ways. The shock value is gone. The terror is diminished.
Okay, so that's the first limb of our Voltron, the role player, the one who forces you to practice. Now let's move to support type 2. The source doesn't give this one a name, but I'm calling them the technician.
The process expert. I like that.
The source says this second manager had experience with PIPs, performance improvement plans. And the advice here was totally different. It wasn't about feelings or words or tone. It was about delivering clear feedback and setting measurable expectations about employee behavior.
This is the backbone. If the role player is the heart or the voice of the operation, the technician is the spine.
Explain that. Why is this technical stuff, the paperwork, the forms, the process, so vital in such an emotional moment? I feel like a lot of people see HR paperwork as just, bureaucracy.
It is bureaucracy, but in this context, bureaucracy is a shield. And more importantly, clarity is kindness.
Clarity is kindness. Unpack that for me. That's a great phrase.
Well, many new managers, because they feel guilty and they want to be nice, they try to soften the blow. They use euphemisms. They say things like, it's just not the right fit, or we're going in a different direction, or you need to be more proactive.
That sounds nice, though. It sounds gentle. It feels less confrontational.
It sounds gentle to the manager who's saying it. It sounds incredibly confusing and often cruel to the employee who's hearing it. The employee leaves that meeting thinking, wait, what does proactive even mean? Could I have fixed this? Am I being fired because my boss just doesn't like me personally?
Or they think, you're firing me for no legitimate reason, which of course leads to wrongful termination lawsuits.
Exactly. The technician comes in and asks the hard, unsentimental questions. What specifically did they do? What specifically did you ask them to change? Did you write it down? Was it measurable? The source mentions measurable expectations. That is the difference between subjective feedback and objective feedback.
Give us an example. What's a subjective expectation versus a measurable one?
Subjective is, you need to have a better attitude. What does that even mean? How do you measure that? Does it mean smiling more? Does it mean staying late? It's impossible to prove or disprove.
And measurable would be, what? You need to file your weekly status reports by 5:00 p.m. every Friday without fail.
Correct. Or you need to arrive at the 9 a.m. daily stand-up meeting on time. It's binary. It happened or it didn't. When you ground a firing in objective, documented reality, you remove the sense of personal malice.
I see. So the technician helps remove the manager's guilt by grounding the decision in facts and process.
Yes, this is the sleep at night factor. If you know you gave clear feedback, if you know you set measurable goals, and if you know the employee didn't meet them despite support, then the firing is a consequence of their choices, not your cruelty.
That is a powerful reframe. The technician takes the weapon out of your hand and puts the responsibility on the process where it belongs.
Yes. Without the technician, you risk a firing that is messy, unethical, or even illegal. But without the role player, you risk a firing that is emotionally disastrous, even if it's legally sound. You absolutely need both.
It's a real balance. You need the warmth and humanity of the role player and the cold, hard competence of the technician.
Okay, so we have the role player and the technician. But the author wasn't done. There was a third manager in the den. Let's call this person the listener.
The emotional container. That's a great term for it.
What's fascinating here is the source note. This third manager had never fired anyone before, so they had zero technical expertise. They couldn't help with the script. They couldn't help with the PIP. They were, by traditional metrics, useless in this situation.
And in a traditional mentorship model, we would ignore this person, wouldn't we? We'd say, you have no experience, you can't help me. We tend to only value senior advice.
Right. Come back when you've fired 10 people and have the battle scars. That's the typical mindset. But the author says this person offered something else entirely. They were a phenomenal listener. They gave quiet space to share and process how I was feeling.
Quiet space. That sounds almost therapeutic. It doesn't sound like management advice.
It is. And we have to talk about the concept of toxic handling or emotional containment. Look, firing someone is traumatic. I don't use that word lightly. You are taking away someone's livelihood. You are impacting their family, their mortgage, their healthcare, their entire sense of self-worth. If you are a human being with a shred of empathy, that hurts.
It should hurt. If it doesn't hurt, you probably shouldn't be a manager.
I completely agree. But here's the problem. You cannot process that hurt in the room with the person you are firing. You have to be the rock for them. You also cannot process that hurt with your team because you have to project stability. You can't tell your direct reports, I'm so sad I fired Bob, because then they all feel unsafe and start updating their resumes.
So where does the hurt go? Where does all that stress and guilt and sadness go?
Usually, it goes into an ulcer. Or a bottle of wine at the end of the day. Or insomnia.
Or you take it home and you're short with your partner or your kids.
Exactly. This is the structural tiredness we talked about at the very beginning. The listener provides the release valve. They let you say, I feel like a monster. They let you say, I'm scared I messed this up. They let you cry. They don't try to fix it. They don't say, here's a PIP template. They don't say, here's a better script. They just say, this sucks. I'm here. Tell me about it.
The source notes that this manager helped them process the guilt, fear, or anxiety. And I think that's so important because if you go into the firing full of unprocessed guilt, you're going to botch it. You'll apologize too much, or you'll backpedal, or you'll make it about you.
Yes. You see this all the time. A manager feels so guilty that they start promising things they can't deliver. Oh, maybe we can contract you later, or I'll write you a glowing recommendation, even if the person was fired for cause.
Because they're trying to soothe their own conscience in that moment at the expense of clarity and truth.
Exactly. You need to discharge that emotional static electricity before the event. The listener grounds you. They let you feel the feelings, so you don't have to act them out in the meeting itself.
So let's just look at this triad. We have the role player to prep the performance, the technician to prep the process, and the listener to prep the person.
That is a formidable team. That is a complete holistic support system.
And it didn't end there.
Yeah.
The source gives us one final beautiful detail about the aftermath. The day of the firing comes. It was, in the author's words, tremendously difficult. No surprise there. All the prep in the world doesn't make it fun. But afterwards,
the entire den took the author out for drinks. The whole group.
To me, that is the most important part of the entire story.
It's the closure, isn't it? Emotional support isn't just for preparation, it is for recovery. Think about the adrenaline crash. You build yourself up for days, you have this incredibly tense conversation, the employee leaves, and then you are just alone in an empty office. The silence must be deafening.
And the doubt immediately creeps back in. Did I do it right? Was I too harsh? What are they doing right now? Have I ruined their life?
Exactly. Having a group of peers who show up and say, you did a hard thing, we are here with you, you are still a good person, let's go get a burger, is absolutely essential. It reintegrates you into the tribe after you've had to perform an act of severing.
It's the leaning on that the source emphasizes. You can't just stand on your own 2 feet all the time. Sometimes you need to lean.
And notice they didn't just send a Slack message saying, hope you're okay. They physically took them out. They changed the environment. They created a ritual of transition from firing mode back to human mode.
That brings us perfectly to our third segment, the core concept. The author looks at this experience, this combination of role-playing, technical advice, and listening, and coins the phrase manager Voltron.
It's such a sticky metaphor. It works so well.
For those who maybe didn't grow up in the 80s or catch the Netflix reboot, give us the quick primer on Voltron. Why Voltron?
Okay, so Voltron was this animated series. You had these 5 robot lions, each with its own pilot. On their own, they were cool, they could fight bad guys, but when the monster was really big, when the threat was existential, they would combine. One lion becomes a leg, one becomes an arm, another the head, and they form this giant, unbeatable super robot called Voltron.
And the robot is exponentially stronger than the sum of its individual lion parts.
Exactly. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
So the author applies this to management. They say, and I'm quoting here, I consider them each a facet of what an imaginary ideal manager would be.
This is the profound shift, and this is where we really solve that tiredness we talked about in the intro. This is the cure.
Unpack that. How does a cartoon robot from the 80s solve my leadership fatigue?
The tiredness comes from the myth of the perfect manager. We all carry around this archetype in our heads, this impossible ideal. The perfect manager is a brilliant orator who always knows the right words. That's the role player. The perfect manager knows every HR policy by heart, loves spreadsheets, and never makes a procedural error. That's the technician. And the perfect manager is also a saintly therapist who never gets annoyed and has infinite empathy for everyone. That's the listener.
And on top of that, the perfect manager is also a visionary strategist, a technical expert in their field, and a great party planner who remembers everyone's birthday.
Exactly. And we try to be all of those things all at once, all the time, for everyone. We try to be the whole robot by ourselves.
Yeah, that is completely impossible.
Yeah.
You can't be a contract lawyer and a therapist and an acting coach simultaneously. I mean, those are often conflicting skill sets.
No human is all of those things, but we beat ourselves up when we aren't. We feel like failures because we aren't the omega manager. We think, I'm bad at paperwork, so I'm a bad manager. Or, I froze up in that difficult meeting, so I'm a bad leader.
So the Voltron mindset flips the script entirely.
It flips it completely. It says, I don't need to be the ideal manager. I just need to build the ideal manager. My job is to assemble the team.
I love that framing. You are the architect, not the entire building.
Right. If I am terrible at difficult conversations, I don't need to suffer in silence or read 10 books on charisma. I need to find a limb of my Voltron who is great at them and borrow their strength, get their advice. If I am great at empathy but terrible at logistics, I find a technician.
It relieves the pressure to be omniscient.
Yeah.
It makes it okay to have gaps, as long as you have a network to fill them. It reframes weakness as an opportunity for collaboration.
Exactly. It changes, I don't know what I'm doing, to, I don't know this part, but I know who does. And that is a much less tiring and much more powerful place to live. It transforms the job from a solo ascent of Mount Everest into a team expedition.
This also highlights the value of diversity, which the source explicitly mentions. The author learned the value of a diverse group of people.
Yes. And this brings us right back to the echo chamber point from the beginning. Let's play out the alternative. Imagine your Voltron is made of 5 people who are all just like you. Let's say they're all good listeners.
Okay, so I have a firing coming up. I go to my group. We all cry about it. We all share our feelings. We hold space for each other. It's very emotionally supportive.
It's a great crying session,
Yeah.
very cathartic. But then you walk into the firing, you don't have a script, you haven't prepared the paperwork, you accidentally say something illegal, and the company gets sued.
Total failure. We felt good, but we did bad work.
Right. Conversely, imagine your Voltron is 5 technicians. 5 people who love rules and forms and process.
Okay, so I have perfectly drafted documents.
Yeah.
The legal language is bulletproof. The dates are all correct. The process is flawless.
But nobody asked you how you're feeling. Nobody role-played the tone. You walk in like a robot. You crush the employee's soul because you're cold and clinical. Everyone on your team hears about it and hates you. The team morale tanks. And you go home and have a panic attack because you bottled up all that emotion.
Also a failure. A different kind of failure, but still a failure.
You need different heroes to form the robot. You need the friction. You need the person who says, stop crying, let's look at the spreadsheet, and the person who says, put away the spreadsheet for a minute and tell me how you feel.
That friction is where the resilience comes from. It's what covers your blind spots.
Precisely. If everyone in your network agrees with you all the time, your network is broken. If everyone in your network has the same job title and background as you, your Voltron is just one giant leg hopping around. You need arms and a head and a torso.
That's a great visual, a giant leg hopping around. Okay, this brings us to the practical application. We've sold the concept, now we need to actually build it. Segment 4, auditing your network. The source actually provides a figure 5.3 and challenges the reader to fill it out.
This is the homework assignment, and I really want you, the listener, to do this mentally right now. Don't just listen, visualize.
Okay, let's visualize figure 5.3. It asks, who in your network currently gives you each kind of support, skill, or perspective?
Yeah.
Based on the story, we have 3 main boxes. Box 1, the role player, someone to practice with.
Listener, think about your contacts right now. Your phone, your Slack, your LinkedIn. Who could you call and say, I need to have a really tough talk? Can you pretend to be Bob from accounting for 10 minutes? Do you have that person?
Someone who won't laugh at you, someone who will take it seriously and give you real feedback.
Yes, someone who will give you honest feedback. Hey, you sounded a little defensive there, or you're rambling, get to the point faster. If you don't have that person, that's a gap. That's an empty box.
Box 2, the technician, someone with history, experience, the tactical know-how.
Who knows the rules better than you? Who has been at the company longer and knows where the bodies are buried, so to speak? Who actually reads the employee handbook? Who understands the legal ramifications of what you're about to do?
This is often someone in HR or legal, right? But it doesn't have to be.
It can be, or it can just be a veteran manager who is a real stickler for detail and process. If you don't know who that is, you are flying blind. You are one mistake away from a major compliance issue.
And box 3, the empath, the listener, someone to process feelings with.
Who can you call and say, I feel like garbage today, without them immediately trying to solve it or judging you? Who is your safe harbor? And an important note here, this often shouldn't be your spouse or your partner.
Oh, that's a really good point. Why not? That seems like the most natural person to go to.
Because your spouse carries your stress too. They're on your team. If you come home every single day saying, I might get fired or I hate my job, this is awful, that destabilizes your home life.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need a professional peer who understands the work context but isn't relying on your paycheck to pay the mortgage. It separates the stress.
It is very wise. The source also mentions other boxes. It says, use these to identify support unique to your current position or environment. The Voltron is customizable. What else might go in another box?
Oh, this is fun. Depending on your job, you might need the challenger.
The challenger, tell me more.
The person who tells you when you're wrong. The person who plays devil's advocate so you don't make a stupid strategic decision because everyone in the room is afraid to disagree with you. As a leader, people tend to stop telling you the unvarnished truth the higher you go. You need someone in your network who isn't afraid to say, that's a terrible idea and here's why.
That's invaluable, a truth teller. What about the cheerleader?
Absolutely. Sometimes you don't need advice or listening or critique. You just need hype. You need someone to remind you that you're a rock star before you walk into a huge presentation. You need that dopamine hit of, you got this.
Or maybe the connector. The person who just knows everyone and can open doors or make introductions when you need them.
Or the historian. The person who knows why the company does things this way so you don't repeat the mistakes of 2015. The person who can say, oh, we tried that 5 years ago. Here is why it failed spectacularly. Let's not do that again.
The point is, the boxes are customizable to your needs.
Yeah.
But the auditing process itself is what matters. You have to be brutally honest with yourself about the empty boxes on your chart.
Yes, you have to look at the empty boxes.
Yeah.
Because those empty boxes are the source of your pain. They're the source of the fatigue.
Let's connect that directly back to the intro. We talked about that specific, heavy tiredness. If you are feeling that management fatigue, can we diagnose it by looking at the empty boxes?
I think we can. It's a fantastic diagnostic tool.
Walk us through that. Give us some examples.
Okay. If you are tired because you are constantly anxious about making a procedural mistake, or you feel like you're reinventing the wheel every time you have to file a report or do a performance review, you are missing a technician. You are spending way too much cognitive energy trying to learn the rules from scratch over and over again.
That makes perfect sense. What if you are tired because you just feel emotionally drained and brittle, like you're about to snap at anyone who asks you a simple question?
You are missing a listener. You are carrying the emotional load of your team all by yourself. You are absorbing the toxicity of the workplace without any release valve. You are basically being poisoned by secondhand stress.
And if you are tired because every single difficult conversation feels like a high-wire act, and you're terrified of saying the wrong thing and making it worse,
You are missing a role player. You are performing without rehearsal. Every interaction is live, which is incredibly exhausting. There's no practice.
it's amazing how the specific flavor of your fatigue tells you what limb of the Voltron is missing.
It really does. And the beauty of this is that it gives you a task. Instead of just being tired and feeling helpless about it, you can say, my goal for this quarter is to recruit a technician. That is an actionable, concrete goal.
But that brings up the awkward part, right? How do you recruit them? You can't just walk up to someone in the break room and say, will you be the left leg of my support robot?
Well, maybe not in those exact words. That might get you a visit from the real HR department, but you can be transparent about your needs.
Give us a script. How does the listener ask for this help without sounding weird or needy?
You lead with admiration and a specific ask. For a technician, you say, hey, I really admire how you handle all the compliance issues on your team. You always seem to have your ducks in a row. I struggle with that sometimes. Can I run things by you every now and then, just for a sanity check?
That's so flattering. People love to be asked for their specific expertise. It's a compliment.
Exactly. Or for the role player. Hey, I have a really tough meeting coming up. I'm nervous about how I'm going to sound. Would you mind letting me practice my opening line on you for literally 5 minutes? I'd really value your take.
5 minutes, that's key. It's a low commitment. You're not asking them to be your lifelong coach.
Low commitment, high impact. And here is the secret that makes it all work. Reciprocity. The Voltron works both ways.
Right. It's a network, not a
Yeah.
one-way street. You don't just take.
You say, and in exchange, I know you're working on that big presentation. I'm happy to look at your slides and give you feedback on the narrative. You might be the listener for someone else, while they are the technician for you. That's how you build a resilient culture, not just a resilient individual. It's a web of support.
It really reframes the whole idea of networking. It's not about handing out business cards or trying to climb the ladder. It's about asset allocation for survival.
It is. It's about building a survival web, because the work is too hard to do alone. The complexity of modern work, the emotional labor, it exceeds the capacity of the individual human brain.
We are coming to the end of our time, and I think we have successfully unpacked the manager Voltron. We've gone from the crisis of the first firing to the structure of the den to the 3 pillars of support: role player, technician, listener, and finally to the personal audit of your own network.
It's a journey from isolation to collective strength, from I have to know everything to I have to know the right people.
If there is one thing I want you to take away from this, it's that image of the den taking the author out for drinks after the hard day was over. It's that moment of community, the realization that you don't have to be the hero on the mountaintop all alone.
Right. The hero on the mountaintop is cold and lonely and, usually frozen. The manager Voltron is warm and powerful and supported.
So here is your final call to action. Stop trying to be the perfect manager. Stop trying to white-knuckle your way through the anxiety and the exhaustion. Look at your Fig 5.3. Look at those empty boxes.
And start recruiting. Find your role player, find your technician, find your listener. Go build the robot.
The source ends with a lovely, simple phrase. The author writes directly to the reader. I'm rooting for you.
And I love that, because management is hard, it is grueling work, it is often thankless, but it is also noble work if you do it right. And knowing that someone is rooting for you, whether it's the author of a book, your den, or even us here on the Deep Dive, that matters.
Yeah. It really does. You don't have to do it alone. That's the message. Thank you so much for listening. Go build your Voltron. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.